Hello, welcome to the live. I might be wearing the same shirt I wore last week. I was recording a video last week before I went live, and I had to re-record a little segment for it, a little part I missed, and so I put the same shirt on. So if it looks like a repeat, I'm sorry. I love this shirt when it's hot because it's very cool. It's not all lace. There's a non-lace part. I wish I bought like 12 of them. If only I'd known. Anyone else do that where you're like, I should have bought so many more of that shirt. It was like Target on the clearance rack. I mean, people, I love this shirt. I don't know what to do. If it goes bad. It's a little big now, but it's still good around here. So it's fine. Anyway, enough about me. How are you? Welcome to the live call. I'm going to end this a little bit early tonight because I got to do something, but glad to be here with you to talk about whatever you would like to talk about. This is Kim Howerton. This is my Q&A. I do this every week. And today I made several things. I made a sandwich for lunch and put it up on my social media. I really like that chicken salad. So my chicken salad recipe, I got off of TikTok or something. I'm not even on TikTok. You know, one of those things where somebody puts a TikTok somewhere and I happened to see it. And it apparently was supposed to be like a Chick-fil-A duplicate of a salad they used to sell that they don't sell anymore. But I basically put in the food processor some cooked chicken, Greek yogurt. You can add mayo. So mayo and Greek yogurt, depending on the ratio of fat you want. You put in some spices. I put in salt. I put in some onion powder, some garlic powder. I put in some Italian seasoning too sometimes. And then I dice celery and pickles. And I pour that in with pickle juice. And then 2 hard-boiled eggs, and you process that all up. You can, if you want the celery and the pickle not super small, then just mix it in at the end. Don't process it more; they'll get super fine. But I make that, and if I use like a pound of chicken, then I end up with probably about 6 meals out of it. I put it on Indigo Neely's protein bread. It is delicious. It's a great lunch. So like and I buy the chicken pre-cooked. So that's easy. So it literally takes me like 5 minutes to make lunch for the whole week. Very easy. I can make the bread can be cooking at the same time. That's about 2 minutes of effort. So on those busy weeks, it's very easy. I can't use as much of the chickens. I have to say that it does not last me 6 meals with the chicken salad because my boyfriend also loves this chicken salad. So it lasts about 3 meals because we share it. Gail says, I think the protein sparing bread is much better with 3 tablespoons whole egg powder. You know, what's funny is I didn't love it with a whole egg powder. I prefer it with butter powder. So I follow Indigo Neely's recipe, which has butter powder in it. I might have given up too soon on the whole egg powder, and I did something dumb. I bought the whole egg powder, tried it with the whole egg powder, didn't love it with the whole egg powder, and then I gave the whole egg powder away. I was like, I probably should have done more experiments before I gave this very expensive bag of product away. But anyway, so I make it with egg white powder, water, cream of tartar, salt, allulose, and what's that called? Arrowroot powder. Get that fluffy. Then I put in the butter powder at the end. And gosh, that then reminds me, it's like exactly like Barbasol shaving cream. That is the texture it is at that time. And I cook that. I actually cook it in a silicone baking thing. And what happens, I found, is because it's so high, and the silicone actually will give. So the baking, what is it called? A bread pan kind of does that. And so I end up with really big slices, which I like because I like the inside more. So I don't get the like straight up and then the poof. The whole thing just sort of rounds out. So I use these silicone, they're hot pink silicone baking bread pans, and they're perfect. I don't even have to oil them or put a piece of parchment in there. So that works really well. When my boyfriend watched me doing it once, he was like, because I was like, it's like this mound. He's like, why don't you use 2 pans? And I was like, but I like it to get really big, and then I have big slices. Anyway, But yeah, the butter powder, if like the butter powder, it also gives it almost a sourdoughy flavor, which I really like. So do that. And I made my, what did I make? What I call my protein cake. It's chocolate cake. It's made mostly with protein powder. I'll put that recipe up as well. David, when does the protein video come out? That's what I had to shoot one. I forgot a question that people had, so I had to add that. So I've got it like half edited, and I should finish this week. But what I did, I added this time up front. I said, okay, if a friend was asking me about protein, what would I tell them? Just like real quick, rather than like for this and then for that and then for this. Like there's a lot of detail, and some people are like, could you just get to the thing? And so what I would tell, so this is what I came up with. What I would tell a friend about protein. I would first ask, are you somebody that struggles to get enough protein? Or are you somebody that's like, I love meat. Give me all the meat. I am good. I am not low on protein, I don't think. And if you told me I could eat more meat, I would be happier. So it depends which person you are. If you're the I love meat person, I would say aim for a gram per pound of reference body weight. So that's like your goal weight. So if you're very overweight, don't use your current weight, use your target weight. So what you think you should weigh. Even if you're a little bit off, it's fine. Just what you think you should weigh. And that's 1 gram per pound. Super easy. If you're somebody that really struggles with getting enough protein in, I would say don't go below 0.6 grams per pound. Optimal is probably more like 0.7, but I'm okay as long as you're not going below 0.6. I'm not if you're my family member, I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm a little frightened about that. By the way, do you guys know what the RDA for protein is in grams per pound? Who knows? Fill it into the text if you know. Or you could give it to me in kilograms. I know the translation. Most science is done in kilograms. Americans we're not with it. We're not with it. Right? So in terms of kilograms, I would say that would be you want to get no less than 1.4 grams per kilogram and as high as 2.2 or even a little above. 2.4 is also fine. So those are the kilogram ranges. David, you are on it. It's 0.36 grams per pound is the RDA, which rounds to exactly 0.4 is nutballs. That's not enough. You know what, I came up with a good analogy, I think. Tell me if this is offensive, people. I don't know. I think of the RDA of protein as like the social security of protein. As like a lucky occasional person can survive on it. And, maybe it'll keep you from like dying of starvation, but it's certainly not going to leave you enough to live a happy, healthy, older years on. You're going to really struggle. So yeah, that's what I think about the RDA. It's terrible. All right. So that would be my protein video. Those are the recommendations that I give to a friend. And then I go into a lot more detail. So it'll come eventually. And then I say you want to focus on good quality sources like muscle meat and eggs and dairy. And you should aim to get no less than about 30 to 35 grams of protein per meal. So if you eat multiple meals in a day, I don't think it's worth, if you're not hungry enough to eat at least 30 to 35 grams of protein, you're not hungry enough to eat. So make sure all your meals contain no less. They should contain more, but no less than 35 or so, 30 to 35 grams of protein. The reason for that specifically is that is enough to trigger muscle protein synthesis within your muscles, which helps with the buildup of muscle in your muscles, which you need to do. This was studied by Stu Phillips and Don Layman, 2 PhDs, very smart men, very important numbers to keep in mind. If you were somebody, I know none of you were doing this, but if you're somebody that like eats 6 times a day and you end up eating like 15 grams of protein in every meal, or like when I first started keto, I was eating 2 meals and one of my meals was maybe like 20 grams of protein. The other one might have been 40. Like that 20 gram protein meal wasn't high enough to stimulate muscle protein synthesis within my muscle. It wasn't high enough to get enough grams of leucine within a meal. And I was really missing out on the benefits I could have been achieving during that time. And so I really want to help people not end up in the same boat in terms of being under proteined. So all of that matters now that I've said a lot of words. Who has questions? I'll be happy to answer them. Hello and welcome to the live. I have my trusty mug that is almost empty. I'm still loving the Creami. My boyfriend and I got a Creami, a Ninja Creami. And because I tend to eat what I would call high protein, low carb these days, an ice cream maker is fabulous if you're making a high fat frozen treat. But I tend to make lighter choices. So I would have yogurt for dessert rather than, say, whipping cream. We tried doing a high fat dessert in the Ninja Creami and we made butter. So it does not do as well with very high fat. So if you are somebody that's really looking for true ice cream, I wouldn't get the Creami. I would just get an ice cream maker. But if you're somebody that likes doing things a little on the lighter side, then the Creami is fabulous. So I've been doing a lot of things with protein shakes and yogurt. Yogurt is fabulous in the Creami. So super easy. Thank you, Jack. I enjoy a good Creami. My favorite, so it's nectarine season right now. I've talked about this. It's nectarine season right now, and I love nectarines. I love them. And so I include nectarines in my diet. Now, those of you that are pure keto and have to keep the carbs very, very low, a nectarine's not necessarily going to work for you. So I'm not saying you have to eat nectarines. I am saying I make my life work so I can fit some nectarines in my diet, and that's okay. I don't eat like multiple a day. I have maybe a half a nectarine or maybe sometimes a very small whole nectarine. And so I've made a Creami, which has plain yogurt, like Greek yogurt and a nectarine, and it's just so good. And so I've been really loving that. But alternately, I've made, the Too Good flavored yogurts all have great flavors that you can do in the Creami, and a way to keep the carbs pretty low because a container of Too Good yogurt only has 3 grams of total carbs. So if you are somebody that eats very low carb and wants a dessert that maybe you could have more of than ice cream, you can use Too Good yogurt and then add a little bit of berries to that and enjoy a delightful frosty dessert. Anyway, I'm like now becoming a Creami salesman, but that's what I've been doing. What else would you like me to talk about, people, today? I don't know what else. I'm drawing a blank about what to talk about. My brain is full. I just started my group, my Keto Unstuck group. So we're talking about how to get unstuck, and it's been a very busy start. It's always like that. At the beginning of the program, I have to answer a ton of, it's not like people are asking me questions, but to set the baseline for what we're learning in the course, there are a ton of things that I have to get covered right away, which is why I'm a little ditzy, because I'm thinking about 20, stuck to my hand. I'm thinking about like 20 different things and trying to get them out. And I feel like I'm oh, don't forget about this and this and this and this and this and all this. And this is also important. And so my poor people, they're getting bombarded with important things all at once. But eventually it sorts its way out and you come out the other side with a lot more knowledge and it works out pretty well. So, all right, I have no questions. No one has questions. You're just watching me talk about a Creami. What else? I'm going to Orlando in a few weeks. So if you're in Florida or you want to travel to Orlando the first weekend in August, apparently there are still tickets to Keto Summit Orlando. And that will be super fun. I'm speaking. Dr. Ken Berry is speaking. Maria Emmerich is speaking. A ton of amazing people are going to be speaking. So if you're near Orlando and you want to come, it's Keto Summit Orlando. If you're far from Orlando and you don't mind traveling, I'm going to be traveling across the country because I'm in California. So if you would like to join me, we're going to Orlando. Come along. Silver Moon asks, is my book with Dr. Berry coming to buy soon? Yes. I passed it off to Dr. Berry to learn to do a final read on it, and his child arrived. So that is a little interruption, but we're pretty much done. So what is my presentation at Orlando going to be about? It's about getting unstuck. So about basically what my course is about. about nutritional periodization, how to deal when you're on keto and you're stuck, and how you want to lose weight again and you can't seem to do it and you're gaining weight and you're like, but I'm still low carb. What's happening? And then I talk about, so that's what I'm talking about. The dates in Orlando, let me look. It starts on Thursday, August 4th and runs through Saturday. So Thursday evening, Friday day, Saturday day, and then like there's a breakfast on Sunday, but there's no conference on Sunday. So that's happening. That's the first kind of weekend in August. Sharon, I saw a post about Element and someone mentioned Ultima. You mentioned adding salt. How much? So Ultima is a drink mix powder. They call themselves an electrolyte powder. I do not feel like that is an appropriate designation of Ultima because primarily it's a drink mix powder and that has a lot of B vitamins and a little bit of potassium and a little bit of magnesium. Might be more potassium than that. And hardly any sodium. And my central requirement of an electrolyte powder is that it have a lot of sodium. Ultima does not. Am I saying there's anything wrong with drinking it? Absolutely not. I have no problem with people wanting to drink Ultima. If you like the way it tastes, I know Nisha gives it to her kids. Well, not the little one yet, but I know Nisha gives it to Beckett, and I'm totally in support of that. Little kids don't need as much salt as adults do. And I support adults drinking it if they just like the taste. You can make like popsicles out of it. I'm not against Ultima. I'm against people thinking it has any sodium in it. And so if you like the way it tastes, then feel free to add salt to it. I would just go by how much sodium do you need? I can tell you that Element and Redmond's both have about 1 gram of sodium in their electrolyte drinks. So I would add the amount of salt that would get you that much if that's what you're looking for. I think you might find that tastes a little salty. So I would just add, I would go by taste, because if you add too much salt to your drink, it'll make you feel like throwing up. I don't know how Ultima I don't know how Element and Redmond's do it. They get so much sodium in there without making me feel vomity. But if I just put that much sodium in a drink and drank it, I would glurk. So yeah, I would just go by how much you can tolerate if you're trying to salt up the Ultima. But maybe instead just, I don't know, use it in ways that when you're looking for just drinking, something to drink that tastes good. I don't know. Christine asked, hey, Cambodia. Hey, Karen. Nice to see you. Christine asked, how do I curb my sweet cravings? Salt, cheese. So sweets, the desire for sweets. So that's a great question. Let's talk about it a little bit, which is there are 2 schools of thought around sweet things. Some people say sweet things are like cats, right? Like stray cats. And if you keep feeding your desire to eat sweet things, then they will keep coming around. And so the best way to stop having sweet cravings is to stop drinking things that are sweet or eating things that are sweet. Just take a sabbatical from all sweet things. And eventually your desire for those sweet things goes away. And that does work to some degree, that if you get off the sweet things for a while, after a while, your body doesn't call to them as much. That can be kind of a painful process. I do find eating sour things helps. So eating things like pickles, putting a little salt on your tongue, salty or sour things, those can help with sweet cravings. It kind of like redirects the thought process. On the other hand, there are some people that continue to include sweet things on their journey and do just fine. So you have to know which kind of person you are. If sweet things make you hungrier, if sweet things make you feel like you can eat all day long, like one sweet thing, like if I have this much of a keto piece of cake, I want all the cake that ever was existing, and I'm thinking about cake all day long. If you're that person, like a little bit leads you to eat all of it, then don't have sweet. Then go with avoid sweet things. For me, if I include some sweet things, I'm really happy and I'm fine with it. So I continue to include sweet things. Although I did like a 6-month no sweet sabbatical. It was great from a, like, let me see if I can do this. It was great from a, stronger will perspective. It didn't help me in any way lose weight. So ultimately I brought sweet things back in. And so we all have to find our path. Silver Moon asks, how do you cure leg cramps? I've tried everything. My daughter has them too. So plenty of sodium is my number one go-to in terms of cramp issues. And beyond that, you definitely want to work with a doctor to see if there might be something going on underneath. Debbie Sue asked, how do you define low carb? So, Silver Moon. So I think almost everybody, the average need for sodium is somewhere around 5 grams of sodium. So you want to just look at your sodium intake over the course of the day and see. Debbie said, how do you define low carb? I had somebody tell me today that 100 grams is low carb. Yeah, 100 grams is low carb. It's not maybe the low carb level you choose, but depending on what source you look at, anywhere from 150 grams to 100 grams, sort of the top spectrum of what most people call the start of low carb. So it's a spectrum. So you're like high carb, and then it's like high carb is like probably 300. The American diet averages around 300 grams of carbs a day. So definitely 150 grams is lower carb. It's half the carbs, right? So most people place that sort of mark of demarcation of where you transition from moderate, high to moderate to low, somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to 100. 100 is very commonly, though, used. So I like the idea of 100 being sort of the start of low carb, but then it keeps going down from there. So I would say that very low carb, in my mind, is 20 grams of carbs a day. So we've got, we've got no carb, which is trying to get it as close to zero as possible. Also sometimes called like carnivore, right? Then we've got very low carb, which is 20 and under. Then we've got sort of the gray area of keto that if someone is very athletic, they'd still be in ketosis at 50 grams of carbs. So there's kind of a little bit of a gray area up until about 50 grams, 60 grams. And then really above 50 grams, I would say you're definitely more low carb than keto. So you just kind of think of it as like a gradation. That's how I describe it. Karen mentions that she bites a slice of lemon when she's craving sweet. Yeah, that sour or salty thing. Anne says, how do I find a good hypothyroidism doctor? I've had hypothyroidism for 25 to 30 years. I think I have Hashimoto's. I have been to many doctors, including an endocrinologist, with no luck. I would go to Stop the Thyroid Madness, the website, and see if they have any. I imagine they have some recommendations for thyroid doctors. I would look there. Christine says they come and go. Yeah, I would say if you're really having a bad sweet craving, a pickle is a way that I like to do it, or a pinch of salt in your body, or a slice of lemon, something that kind of like short circuit sweet. Kim says, I am 61 BBBE for 3 months. So that's bacon, butter, beef, egg. That's Dr. Berry's protocol. Lost 15 pounds in water weight. I'm stuck. I have just 1 kidney and adrenals and have the sleeve done. Water weight came off in 3 weeks. Suggestions. So this is my suggestion here is very different than the BBBE, although I think you can totally do the BBBE. I say too many B's there. But I think it's a great protocol for addressing if you have any food intolerances or working on managing hunger levels. I think it's fabulous for that. I think it's a fabulous diet. But the way that I address stalls is tracking. I start tracking macronutrients because for me, if what you're doing is working, keep doing it. If what you're doing is not working, you need data to analyze what about it isn't working. And so then I start tracking. Dan says chronically high glucose does damage to the body. Chronically high insulin level does damage to the body. Do we know what specifically damage chronically high insulin does? Well, I would say read Ben Bickman's book. what's it called in my brain? Why We Get Sick. It's basically a whole book about what chronically high insulin does. So really that can be anything from like really think about insulin as a growth promoter, right? So high insulin causes issues specifically in cancer, right? In supporting and encouraging cancer growth, because that's also a growth issue. It can cause issues in the brain. So insulin, too much insulin. If you end up with insulin resistance in your brain, that's basically going to cause cognitive issues. You can end up with issues in terms of blood pressure issues, heart issues. So I would read Ben Bickman's book Why We Get Sick. It has a lot about the problems of high insulin. And it was a pretty easy read. Yeah, Southern Ketovore says Ben Bittman's book is full of great info and easy to understand. Yeah, so that I would go there. I would go there to that book. Yeah, it's a great book, and it talks. I mean, the whole book is basically about the dangers of chronically high insulin levels. So that's something that I think is important to look at. All right, guys. Any last questions before we wrap it up for the night? All right. I'll call it a night here. Thanks for joining me. I know this was a short one. I got to get some stuff done. So I will see you next week for our normal length episode. So thanks for joining me tonight. By the way, if you haven't, subscribe and like because I would really appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.